This week on Wild Talk, it's part one of the Know Before You Go series. We're talking sheep hunting. I have Kyle Stelter from the Wild Sheep Society here. He joins me to talk about what it takes to hunt ethically, legally, and successfully.
Anyone that's interested in sheep hunting, those are the guys you want to talk to. Talk to the guides and doing your own research, right? Really immersing yourself in it, like you and I have done.
And in Outdoor Lens, I have Doug from the Fur Institute of Canada. He brings the facts and the fur and why it matters to the future of conservation. I'm joined by Justin from Spy Point, where we talk the latest trail camera technology. Whether you're packing a rifle or just scouting the next ridge, this episode of Wild Talk is for you. I'm your host, Steve Hamilton, and you are watching Wild Talk. This episode of Wild Talk is brought to you by Hornady. Accurate, deadly, dependable. Bronc Beer. Great fucking beer. Umarex Air Guns. Hunt with air. And these fine sponsors. Welcome to Wild Talk, everybody. Sheep season is almost upon us, and that means everybody's going to be running for the mountains anytime. So it's time to talk sheep hunting, sheep legalities, and knowing before you pull the trigger in the mountains. So I'm going to preface this conversation by saying I'm not a biologist. My guest is not a biologist. What we are is passionate about the resource. And to be blunt, we've sat through a lot of information sessions, so we're going to relay some information. So I'm joined by the CEO of the Wild Sheep Society of BC, Kyle Stelter. Kyle, huge thanks for joining me again.
Buddy, thanks for having me. It's an honor to connect with you. You're a dedicated conservationist, a monarch and life member of the Wild Sheep Society of BC, a friend of me and the society. Great to be on the show again.
The check's in the mail. So I kind of prefaced what we're doing here. So yeah, you're the CEO of the Wild Sheep Society, but let's get a little bit of credence to who you are. Are you a sheep hunter?
Well, I'm a conservationist first, and my sheep hunting resume will attest to that. That said, I have taken a couple of thinhorn sheep. I've taken a dull sheep and a stone sheep, and had a what I call a great hunting career. I know there's lots of guys out there that have tons of sheep on the wall. And for me, it's not about that. It's about getting out. I've had the privilege of being on several sheep hunts with a number of individuals over the years, and seen a number of rams taken. So lots of eyes on sheep in the field, but not overly experienced. I'm no guide, like you said, no biologist. And anyone that's interested in sheep hunting, those are the guys you want to talk to. Talk to the guides and doing your own research, right? Really immersing yourself in it, like you and I have done. You've been on a sheep hunt, Steve. You spent countless hours looking at bloody photos online and in books and talking to people, and going to those horn aging courses, right? That's the mountain of education and wealth of resources that's out there. So.
I completely agree. And you're going to hear us say it over and over during this episode. If you're unsure, don't pull that trigger. Don't pull the release. Don't fling that arrow. Do not send anything downrange, because you can't take it back. So let's get a little bit about the Wild Sheep Society itself. Tell me a bit about them. I'm well aware, but our guests may not be.
Absolutely, Steve. So our mission is to look after British Columbia's wild sheep and their habitat. So that's our first and foremost mission, and something that we're really passionate about. That said, we are hunter conservationists. We're filled with a bunch of hunters that are really passionate about wild sheep and want to make sure that the resource is well looked after. And part of our mandate is to provide education. We have seen a challenging time in the sheep hunting community, where during the COVID era, there was this huge interest in being in the outdoors and being involved with sheep hunting, because it was kind of this apex sport that people thought, oh, it'd be great to be a sheep hunter. But what was lacking was the education. So the society's taken it very seriously, and we've been working really hard to educate people about the importance of horn aging, taking mature rams and focusing on age and the experience over just, hey, I'm a sheep hunter and I killed a ram. I'll tell you what, if you spend one day with a sheep tag in the field, you are a sheep hunter.
Excellent.
Brag about it all day long. You don't need a sheep on your wall to prove it.
Excellent. So Talk a little bit about why harvesting mature legal rams is important for the resource.
It's really critical, Steve. If you take a beautiful ram that may be legal, that's very young, a 6-year-old ram, for example, and it may even be legal, but if many cases it's not legal, and we end up in a scenario where that ram has incredible genetics, it could go out and breed a bunch of ewes and pass on its genetics and really, really be good for the resource. Instead, it ends up being harvested. And what we encourage our members and sheep hunters to do is really educate themselves on taking older, mature rams that maybe at the end of their lifespan. And if you think about it, if a ram's going to die that winter and you harvest it in September, October, and you go and shoot a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old ram that's got years of life left, you've now taken something off the landscape. You've really taken 2 sheep off the landscape. Hey, take that old ram, go out, target that old ram, go after that one. That's the one we want to.
That's right.
Want to take.
It's about sustainability, right? And it's the same thing with anything out there, right? Let's do the best for the resource. Let's do the best for the landscape. You take that one that is likely going to die anyway, and we're going to get more into how to age sheep, what annuli look like, and a couple other tips and tricks after the commercial on Wild Talk. We're back with more Wild Talk. I'm joined by the CEO of the Wild Sheep Society of British Columbia, Kyle Stelter. We're talking sheep hunting. We're getting into the specifics of it. So we're going to dive right into this segment here about the annuli and the biology of sheep. So Kyle, walk us through a little bit about the biology behind the horn growth.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, wild sheep do have horns, which is not to be confused with antlers like you'll see on an elk or a moose or a deer. And of course, many know that. I apologize for those that know this. But sheep are different. And if you look in British Columbia, really, there are only 3 true horned animals. There's mountain goats, wild sheep, and bison. Everything else does not have horns. They have antlers. So it's important to note that. With the horns, it's a permanent feature, right? Unlike an elk that regrows every year. And they're attached to a bone structure, which is attached to the skull, of course. And it's basically a horn sheath that goes over, but it's permanently attached there. Basically, keratin and other proteins make this up. And why that's important is in many cases, we have to, with thin horn sheep in British Columbia, harvest a sheep that's at least 8 years old or for full curls, the regulation. So what that means is that sheep have what's called annuli, and that's basically 1 year's worth of growth. And so a lamb starts to grow their horns at around 6 to 9 weeks of age, and they continue to grow throughout the life of the animal. So annual horn growth often results in consistent patterns of growth, and because there are secondary sexual characteristics, growth can be affected by nutritional intake, individual fitness, genetics, and also seasonal. So in wild sheep, mountain goats, these patterns of growth are called annuli, and they're used by biologists and also hunters to determine the age of the animal. And it's one of the things that they use to manage harvest within the province of British Columbia.
Cool. That's a high level overview. You hear the word annuli all the time, right? Me, like you said, I've done a ton of research and I've been out there in the field a bunch. But again, break down in layman's terms, what is an annuli and how do you use them for aging a sheep?
So annuli, annual, so it's a 1-year mark effectively. And essentially what happens is they're formed during the winter months. And what happens is there's not as much nutrition on the mountain. Think about it. There's wild sheep. They're out there eating great forage throughout the summer. And then the wintertime, there's nothing to eat. Well, what happens? Everything stops growing. Muscle stops growing. Also, so do the horns. So what happens is it forms what we call the annuli. It's a mark, effectively, that 1-year mark in this case. Kind of like a growth ring on a tree, really, right? So there's often a uniform proportional symmetry in the distances between each annulus. And with the longest growth typically is in that during the 2nd year, and sometimes it's in the 3rd year. And then from that point on, interannulus distances decrease as the ram ages. The rams get older and the annuli continue to grow, but the distance becomes less and less and less as they get older.
Cool. So another one you hear around all the time, you see it on the Facebook groups, the forums, social media, anywhere, is you go, oh, 1, 2, 3. Can you age the sheep for me? And you'll get everybody going, 1, 2, 3. Oh, that's a false annuli. That's a false annuli. Me, I had no idea what it was. So talk a little bit about what a false annuli is and how it can trick somebody.
Yeah, so it's one of the hardest things to do in hunting. When you're sheep hunting, you get these things which are called false annuli, and effectively they're rings on the sheep's horn that occur during a period of reduced growth, but they're not the regular annuli. These are typically caused by poor forage, stress, disease, false rings effectively. So it's really challenging when you're aging sheep to try and figure out which are the actual annuli and which are the false annuli. And watching for those and keeping a very important close eye out is very important to be successful at aging sheep in the field.
Right. I got the opportunity to sit down more than once with a retired provincial sheep and goat bio, and talking with him, just a wealth of knowledge and trying to understand the difference between false annuli and real annuli. It's tough sometimes. I can only imagine what it's like to be out there in the field trying to delineate what one really is and what one isn't. But again, it goes back to that. If you're unsure, don't shoot. We're going to continue this conversation with Kyle from the Wild Sheep Society when we come right back with these messages.
Stream past episodes of Wild Talk at wildtvplus.ca.
These segments on Wild Talk are so much fun for me. I get to sit down with industry experts and talk tech. We talk gear. We talk all the things that make the outdoors and hunting and fishing and sport shooting what they are. So today I've got Justin from Spy Point joining me today, and we're going to talk trail cameras. Justin, thanks for joining me.
All right, man. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Before we got rolling, we talked a little bit about the weather. We're in summer here in British Columbia, and you're 100% humidity. Like, that's crazy to me in southern Louisiana. And
yeah.
Anyway, let's talk trail cameras. So Spy Point, they're a major player in the game. I'm looking over here and I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 6 sitting over there that I need to put out, and I love them. So let's talk. What makes Spy Point stand out from the rest of the pack?
Man, when I looked at these questions prior, there were a couple of answers that stuck out immediately, and the first one is our experience in this segment. We've been around for over 2 decades now. We've made all the wrong and the right turns, and we've got experience with it all, and we're really proud of what we have at this point after 20 years. And on top of that, we're the global leader. We're sold in over 100 countries, which a lot of people don't realize that. North America, while it's the largest segment of our sales, there's 98 other countries other than US and Canada. For instance, our app is translated in 14 different languages, which is a monumental task in itself. So we've been around for a really long time, and we've got a ton of customers all over this planet.
I had no idea that you were a worldwide reach.
Yeah, man.
That's incredible.
We're the worldwide leader. It's 100 countries is something that we're really, really proud of.
No doubt. So for somebody looking to get into trail cams, walk us through a basic setup. I buy a box with a camera in it. I open it up. I slam the batteries in. What's next?
Man, we've spent a lot of time the last few years working on 2 things, and that is becoming simple and reliable. And we're to the point now with our Flex series, which is our newest cellular series, that once you've got the SD card and the batteries in it, there's one button that you have to switch, and that's it. And that's the power button. If you don't do anything else, it's going to turn on and start sending you photos or videos, period. It's that simple now.
Really?
Yeah.
I know with mine, when I connected it to the app, I was like, this seems to be idiot proof. Like, if I can get through it, it seems to be pretty cool. And the functionality was great. So that's something else I want to talk about, is the cellular side of things. How does that work? Do people need a data plan? How does the app come into play?
Yes and no. We started offering a free plan years ago. We are we offer cameras that you don't ever actually have to purchase a plan. If you want to buy one of our cameras and stick it out, you don't ever have to pay for a plan, which is not something a lot of people could say. We offer a 100 photo free plan. So if you're just sticking it in your backyard to view what's coming in there, or, from a hunting standpoint, if you've got some trails that you want to run and gun with your camera and move and just see what's coming in there, you're not around a bait site or a watering hole or anything else where you're gonna get a lot of photos, you may never have to purchase a plan. And that's a huge advantage for folks that are wanting to deploy more than one camera, where the expense of data plans doesn't add up. We do offer data plans, obviously, from free to completely, absolutely unlimited. So we've got a little something for everybody.
Yeah, that was one thing that I noticed when I first got the cam. I was like, oh man, got to buy a plan. And then, yeah, it was 100 pictures, 150 pictures, whatever it was. And all I needed was to make sure that the camera was in a data range. Came in so happy when I was doing some beaver control work for a landowner a bunch of years ago. I knew when I'd caught something, I knew when something was swimming around. It was so much easier to pattern these animals. So I know you guys have recently released some cool products. I don't even know too much about them. Dig right into them for us.
Yeah, man. So we've got the Flex series that's been around for a couple of years now, but this year we released the dark cameras within the Flex. We got the Flex Dark and the Flex S Dark. What the dark insinuates is the option for no glow LEDs, to provide completely undetectable scouting. So one of the things that we've worked hard on the past few years is giving users the option to do one thing or the other, and the LED flash is one of those options that we're providing our users. Complete control of their devices is what the feedback was that we were receiving, and that the option to add that dark no glow LED was something that we knew had to be next. On the dark series as well, we've really made these cameras robust. We've changed the shell, we've changed the seal in the camera to make it more dust and waterproof. We've made a flexible antenna. Anybody with squirrels around know that squirrels like playing with antennas, or elk or cows like rubbing on them. That antenna can be flexed back and forth quite a bit. So a couple of the pieces that still had a little bit of room for improvement. Also the latch, we made it easier. So some very simple improvements, but with our focus being on reliability and simplicity, we've really made these cameras really tough and really simple to operate.
Awesome. As we wrap this up, where can somebody find these cameras?
Just about anywhere, man. SpyPoint.com is the easiest place to go, but there is absolutely a retailer near you running specials all the time and sales where you can pick up one of our cameras.
Awesome. Huge thanks for joining me today, Justin. Can't wait to see what's next.
Thanks, man.
This episode of Wild Talk, we're talking sheep hunting. It's right around the corner. I'm joined by the CEO of the Wild Sheep Society of BC, Kyle Stelter. We're talking sheep hunting. We're about to dig into one of the funnest parts, I think. There's a lot of tips and tricks to it. So, Kyle, let's dig right in. How does somebody age a ram?
Well, I guess there's a couple things that we have to look at, and it's what we're looking at. But one of the things is age. So depending on what sheep you're at, what jurisdiction, there's a whole bunch of factors. But if we look at the age aspect, we talked about annuli in the last segment. So annuli is the horn growth, and quite often there'll be a specific regulation. For example, with thin horn sheep in BC, a sheep has to be 8 years old. So effectively, what you're doing is you're counting that annuli, keeping in mind, like we said in the last segment, that there's false annuli. So it is important for the hunter to understand the age of the ram, what the regulation is, and how to manage it. So the onus really is on the hunter to study the regulations. And then if it is an age restriction, what you're going to do is you're going to start counting rings on that ram. Of course, so that first year, that's the first year starts, it's the lamb tip effectively. Mm-hmm. So you start from the point of the horn and you work your way down to the base, because those are the most recent years. So that's effectively what you're doing, is counting rings.
Gotcha. So we touched on a little bit. We didn't dig too much into it, but in some areas, there's a 3/4 curl, some are a full curl. Talk a little bit about that and what the difference is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, first of all, we have to recognize that these are British Columbia regulations.
Right.
And I know that your Wild Talk is seen all across Canada and beyond. So keep in mind that if you're in Alberta or you're in a different state, Alaska perhaps, the rules are different. So it's on the onus to understand where you're at. But let's talk about British Columbia specifically. And in BC, we have thin horns and we have big horns. Thin horns, we have stone sheep and Dall sheep. And then our big horns, we have Rocky Mountain and California bighorns.
Right.
So when we look at the thin horns, and we'll talk about that first, is that thin horns have a regulation, and I'm going to quote the regulations. Sure. And again, this is me quoting the regulations. Go read the regulations yourself, because they change all the time.
Sure
I don't know if this regulation will or won't change, but a mountain sheep, full curl thin horn ram, it states that means any thin horn ram mountain sheep that has attained the age of 8 years, as evidenced by true horn annuli, viewed squarely from the side at right angles to the sagittal plane of the skull, extending dorsally behind the nose bridge plane. One thing they say, and this is important to note, and one thing I would encourage people to really pay attention to, is do not use yearly horn growth annuli to determine the age of the ram in the field, because false annuli may be present.
Right.
It doesn't mean you can't. It just means that you shouldn't. So the government's telling you right there, don't use the age. So they want you to take a full curl ram. Now, that said, there's 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old rams that aren't full curl. They're still legal, according to the regulations as they currently stand, but something to be aware of. Now, that's for thin horns, and we talk about that most of the time because that's the biggest, that's what most hunters are hunting in British Columbia. That said, in British Columbia, we also have bighorns, and we talked about the California and Rockies. As far as the government's concerned, they're the same. When we have a bighorn, California or Rocky, it's the same thing. And that's broken down into, if you look in the regulations, full curl, 3/4 curl, and mature rams. And if you look under, there's general open season for bighorn. And if we look, basically what you do is the regulations again read that one horn tip extending upwards beyond a straight line drawn from the center of the nostril and the lowest hindmost portion of the horn base. So you draw that line, and if the horn comes through it, you're good to go. But that's just a call in the field. Again, you have to be at 90 degrees. And then 3/4 curl is basically you draw that same line and you draw a line down at 90 degrees from the eye, and the horn has to pass that plane there.
Yep.
Not easy. And again, the one thing the government stresses, and it's important to note, is that the regional bio or the government inspector that inspects your ram is the one that's going to make that decision. So you have to be 100% sure on the field, because the inspector is the one that's going to determine the legality when he gets your ram.
Yep, you nailed it. Again, we're going to say it before we throw to commercial. If you're unsure, don't. We'll be right back with more Wild Talk. And we're back with Wild Talk. I'm joined by the CEO of the Wild Sheep Society of BC, Kyle Stelter. We've been having a great conversation about sheep hunting. I know it's on a lot of your minds right now, so we're going to continue. We're about to get into some of the tips and tricks. We've talked regulations, we've talked annuli, we've talked a little bit of the biology. Now let's get into the fun stuff of why we're out there. So, Kyle, you've been in the field a ton more times. On our commercial break there, you were talking that you're going again this year. So it's time to bring some firsthand knowledge to our viewers and our listeners. What strategies does someone like yourself use in the field to judge rams?
Well, and this is where guides are just an incredible resource. They do this day in and day out, Steve. So if you've got a guide friend, go and talk to them, because they're going to give you some great tips. But one thing to keep in mind is that young rams have a large space between their annuli near their base. So the old rams, they call them stacked up. Mm-hmm. If you look at an old ram, you're just going to see lines and lines of annuli. You're like, oh, that's an old ram. Smooth horns, that kind of indicates that, that's probably a younger ram sort of at the bases. Lots of dark horn near the base is, again, another tell.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously not full curl. If it's not a full curl ram right there, that should be a signal. In sheep, we call, when they lose kind of the tips of their horns, we call it brooming. So sheep they fight, they rub their horns in the ground. There's a whole bunch of other things they do. They get broken off, or they just get worn down with time, just being an old ram. So if it's not broomed, if it's got its lamb tips, that's probably a good signal that might be a younger ram. Some of the old rams, they have what they call the Roman nose. So if you see the old Roman nose on that ram and it's got a big bump, that's probably a good sign that it's an older ram. And then if horns have little or no outward flare, if they're quite tight here, that's probably a good signal that that's a young ram, whereas the older rams might flare out more. So those are some of the horn characteristics. Again, none of these are going to make a ram legal or illegal.
Right.
It's going to be the regulation. Is it full curl? Is it 3/4 curl? Is it mature? Is it 8 years old? So again, that's where understanding of regulations is really critical. These are just some of the ideas that, hey, that looks like a young ram. I'm not going to hike over that extra ridge and go take a look at him. Or, oh man, you can see, all these characteristics. Let's go take a look at him.
Yeah. So when you're seeing them from a distance, talk a little bit about herd dynamics and what that looks like and how you can judge a ram.
Yeah, great question, Steve. So, if you get an old mature ram, he's the boss. We call it the lead ram. So the lead ram is the lead ram for a reason. He has the wisdom. The other rams defer to him. They follow him. It's fun watching sheep on the mountain. And again, if you're a sheep hunter and you want to learn how to sheep hunt, go watch sheep and watch how they interact with each other. And you'll watch a band of rams. Quite often pre-rut, the rams will all get together. They hang out in sort of bachelor herds, we call them, and it could be anywhere from 3 to 20. And they'll be hanging out, and they'll be the lead ram. That's the one you want to watch. And you can tell him because he walks around like he owns the place. He's the boss. You'll see him walk up to a young ram and kick him out of his bed. He just move. And the young ram just gets up and gets the heck out of the way because they know not to mess with the lead ram. So you can really, really tell. And it's interesting when you take the lead ram, if you harvest a sheep, and sheep hunters, it's a little disconcerting the first couple times you see it, is that ram falls over, and rams and sheep are very scared. That's the big thing, is they've got incredible eyesight. They can see you from a long distance. Quite often they'll see you before you see them. That's the challenge. But an old ram, when he falls over, the lead ram, the other rams, especially if they're young and they're inexperienced, they all just hang around. And so you can walk right up to your ram, and these rams don't know where to go because they've followed this guy for the last couple of years. And now he's just laying there. They're like, buddy, come on, we need to go. And, so quite often you'll be skinning your ram out, and these other young rams will be hanging around.
Yep. Good tip there. I've seen videos where people are walking up to the rams and they're surrounded by rams. So before we throw to commercial, quick high level, how does somebody be successful with their field judging?
Good binos, get close, study sheep, take your time, never, ever, ever rush. Sit there and analyze and ask yourself, is this ram legal? And look for all these different traits that make a mature ram mature, and make sure that it's within the regulation that you need to follow.
Awesome. We'll be right back with more Wild Talk.
Stream past episodes of Wild Talk at wildtvplus.ca.
We're back. We're talking sheep hunting. Probably by now, some of you even have your bags packed for the second, third time, pulling it apart, going through. Kyle, you've been at my place before, heading north, and I've watched you unpack your bag and your partner unpack your bag. So it's a good habit to get into. So as we close this out and people are repacking their bags and watching this for tips and tricks, let's get into why is selecting older, mature rams so important for the herd?
Well, one thing about it is government biologists liaise with the Wild Sheep Society of BC, and for a few years there, during those COVID years, there was a lot of people out in the field. and there was a lot of young rams taken,
Right.
and some number of them were legal. Like we're talking dozens, and won't get into the actual numbers, but it was high level. And
Yeah.
so, and what the government said to us, hey, if this trend keeps up, we're going to start putting stone sheep on LEH, or there's going to be closures because this is unsustainable. So it's really important, and the onus is on the hunter to educate themselves, understand the regulations, what's involved, and then once you get the regulations, how do you apply them? So, is it full curl? Is it a mature 8-year-old ram? So, there's specific regulations, and understanding those rules. Because what's going to happen is if you shoot these underage rams, it does have an impact on the resource. If you have, say, for example, mule deer with a 4-point restriction, and that last little point, the sticker was just shy of 1 inch and it wasn't legal. Oh, well, it would, that's unfortunate. It was illegal. You broke the law. Okay. But with sheep, it's actually, if you shoot a 6-year-old ram versus an 8-year-old ram, that has conservation impacts. So it's really important that you do your due diligence and make sure that you're fully aware of what's involved, and making sure that you're not one of the offenders. So like I said, Steve, it was several dozen during the COVID years. We've been working really hard on the education side of things to the society, and I think creating more awareness in the community, hence why we're talking today. And we had 3 last year, which is phenomenal.
That's unreal.
But please, to your listeners, don't be one of those 3. Don't be that guy or gal. You don't need to. Again, you don't need to have a picture of you and a ram for the gram to be special. Just being out there makes you special.
Yeah. And look at it this way. If you're unsure by an inch, go back next year. They don't go too far in their travels. They always come back to the same sort of setup, we'll say, and think about how much bigger he'll be next year. So
well said.
What are the risks if we continue to harvest underage rams? What's going to happen?
Well, again, the government's talked to us and they're like, hey, like LEH is coming if you guys keep this up. So, and when they say you guys, they're talking about hunters. They're not accusing the society or even our members of doing it. But, it's important to get the word out there that there can be restrictions. And at some point, there becomes a conservation impact. If you shoot all the mature rams and there's nothing left to breed, well, how do you sustainability is in question, right? So it's important that educate yourself, make sure that you're taking these mature rams. These regulations are in place to protect the resource. They're not there for any other reason. They're there to protect the resource, and government says, hey, we need these restrictions to be effective. And then if they're not being adhered to, or the harvest is too high, then what they do is they put them on LEH
or they cut it completely. Right.
Exactly.
You and I have been at this long enough to know once it goes LEH, it doesn't come back to GOS, if it even comes back at all. So,
well said.
Get on your soapbox here, my friend. What are some additional resources for judging wild sheep? Where can people go?
Well, the society, that's our job. That's what we do day in and day out, is think about wild sheep and conservation. We'd love to have you come to one of our events, even think about joining as a member and help put sheep on the mountain. We have horn aging courses. We're actually doing 9 across the entire province, 1 in every single region across British Columbia. Our Salute to Conservation and Mountain Hunting Expo, we do horn aging there. We have the experts in the room. This year we had Adam Foss, John Barklow, TJ Schwanke, Dylan Ayers, teaching you how to hunt in the mountains. So great opportunity there. That's in Penticton. I think it's February 27th to 29th to 2026. There's tons of opportunity to get involved. We will be doing a horn aging course near you this year. We've done 3 or 4 already. We've got 5 left. Check it out at wildsheepsociety.com. We're also putting out a computer-based training episode that you can do online, a course, and that should be released in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome. As I wrap this up, I want to say a huge thanks to you, for Kyle, for all that you do. A huge thanks to your board of directors. And guess what? Drinks are on you next time. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you again. All right, everybody, this segment of the Outdoor Lens on Wild Talk, I am talking with Doug Chason from the Fur Institute. A huge thanks for joining me today, Doug.
No, thanks for having me, Steve.
So first off, what is the Fur Institute?
So we're a national not-for-profit organization, and we like to say we're Canada's national voice for fur. we're made up of trappers organizations, sealing organizations, fur manufacturers, fur retailers, and governments, indigenous nations. Really anybody in Canada who's interested or implicated in the fur trade, they can and should be members of the Fur Institute.
Okay, so it's like a member-based organization then.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, how many members do you represent roughly?
So we represent somewhere around 100 members right now. Our members are generally, businesses or organizations. We do allow it for individual memberships.
Okay. And how long has the Fur Institute been around?
So we were created in 1983. So we're 42 years old now. It's a new challenge every day. And a new adventure every day. Because in the course of the week, I could be talking about species at risk. I could be talking about tariffs. I could be talking about trap design. I could be talking really anything and everything that touches on trapping, on sealing, on fur bearer management, and on the fur market. Right.
So it's not just the fur side of things. It's literally everything from the trap certifications, et cetera, the Fur Institute deals with it. Let's dig into it a little bit for a couple minutes. What are some of the myths about trapping that you encounter that you've got a big audience, you just want to say that's completely false?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest myth we face is that trappers want to kill all the animals, right? That that there's people out there that think that we're destroying the environment and we're taking all the animals off the landscape. That's fundamentally couldn't be more wrong.
That's right.
No one cares more about fur bearers than trappers do. Probably the other myth that I encounter most often is people don't want fur. People love fur. Fur is cool. Right. We're seeing a resurgence of that right now. I'm far from a high fashion individual, obviously, but the folks that are on runways and, the cool kids in the tabloid magazines and stuff right now, and people on the ski hills in San Moritz and streets of Paris, they're wearing fur.
That's right.
And it's, there's a backlash now against this idea of we shouldn't have worn fur. So, we talk a lot about right now in the work that we do at the Institute around providing permission to buy. That, if fur can sell itself if it's just being considered as this is a really cool garment, really cool accessory.
Right.
It's just getting people kind of unbrainwashed or deprogrammed of the misinformation that they've been getting force fed for 40 or 50 years.
That's right.
About how, people saying that trapping is inhumane or fur farming is inhumane or sealing is inhumane, putting the facts in front of people and having them consider buying a fur coat versus buying a synthetic coat.
Yeah.
And, for folks, Gen Z and millennials that are so much more, attuned to issues of sustainability and microplastic pollution and things like that, they're going, well, wait a minute. Why did we stop using this great natural biodegradable textile product?
Yeah.
And instead change to stuff that ends up in a landfill for 3,000 years?
That's
Doesn't
right.
make any sense.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I wanted to finish up on is the fact that it is biodegradable and it's renewable and it's sustainable and it's been around for thousands and thousands of years around the world. So, Doug, if an organization wants to become a member of the Fur Institute, how do they do it?
Yeah, so they can shoot us an email at info@fur.ca, or they can go on the website, which is fur.ca. Scroll down to the bottom. There's a become a member link there, and short little form to fill out. That sends me an email on the back end, and then I'll get in touch with folks if and when they reach out.
Awesome. Thanks for all that you guys do, and a huge thanks for joining me today.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
Stream past episodes of Wild Talk at wildtvplus.ca.
A huge thanks to Kyle for joining me once again on this episode. We hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did. Next up, we're switching gears to another incredible mountain species, the mountain goat. I'll be sitting down with Marvin from the Rocky Mountain Goat Alliance. There's real-world consequences if hunters aren't selective when it comes to their harvest, right? What could come down the pipe? We've seen it with other species.
I mean, we have it in BC. We're really fortunate here. You know, you go to the lower 48. I mean, you're not getting there's no over the counter tags. It's a once in a lifetime draw.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that I took for granted for a lot of years. And you know, I harvested young animals. I've harvested a couple nannies. I had so many goats in my backyard for years that I didn't even, you take it for granted. And I think that's something we can't take for granted anymore. The
Right.
populations are going down. The Goat Alliance, we're trying to gather data from all jurisdictions to kind of get where's the latest counts. There's not a lot of dollars spent on mountain goats, so
No.
that's another concern. But what, you know, we have some open areas in the province, but a lot of it's LEH, which is good. But what we're going to start to see is areas that are closed.
Yeah.
We generally say, I mean, all the regs for the most part, it says mature, nanny, or billy.
Yeah.
Up till 10 years ago, all the Kootenays said any goat, any sex. So you could
Wow.
shoot any goat and it didn't matter, which was always shocking to me.
Yeah. No kidding.
So that's, you know, in the last 10 years that changed. For the first time, what we're seeing in the bow only area is it actually states in the regs male only, which I think came in last year. I'm not sure the consequences if you do take a nanny. I will have to look into that one, but there's been a over harvest
Right.
of nannies in certain areas, and that is one of them. Which what ends up happening is my thinking is that a lot of people are going, it's the hunt is a once in a lifetime, even say they're guided
Mhm.
or say they're just not into mountain hunting. They've worked hard. It's a very difficult hunt for the most part. And sometimes you just want to come back with something.
Yeah.
You just, or you get tricked, but there are times where I think you want some success. And what you're going to see is you're going to see more closures. I think once we get more population data, which is
Yeah.
always a struggle, there's probably areas that probably shouldn't be being open to hunting even at this point in time, but they just don't have the data.
Hmm.
But you're going to see reduced opportunities, and which we're seeing already in many areas for many species around the
Yeah.
province where it was open. Now it's limited entry for bighorn sheep in the
Yeah.
Kootenays.
3 and
It's
4. Yep.
limited entry for caribou.
6.
You know, and I think realistically, and I don't know, at one point they did, if you harvested in Region 7 a sheep years ago, you couldn't harvest one for 3 years. So potentially those kind of restrictions could come in for goats as well. As if you harvest a nanny, maybe you can't hunt goats for 3 years, right? So, which isn't a bad thing. I think that will really make people become more educated and be more
Yeah.
careful when they're selecting their animal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't really have a problem with that, but
Yeah. It's one of those ones they always say once it's gone, right? It's really hard to bring something back once you've lost it. Region 5, for example, here with the moose, right? It used to be a spike fork season, I believe it was 20 years
yeah.
ago, and they went to LEH on a temporary basis, and we're
It,
still at LEH, right? We just saw
it,
that come in 4 with the
yeah.
sheep.
Once you lose something, I mean, I'm going to mention grizzly hunting because I've been a passionate bear
Yep,
hunter for
same
most of my
here.
life, and
As
that's
you
no
can see.
longer. You're not going to see it. You're not going to see it. It's tough to get it back ever. It's just,
Absolutely.
and we're going to see that more and more. So I think we have to, as hunters, we need to represent. You know, we have to represent hunters well, even in the
Yeah.
non-hunting circles. And I'm a big advocate of that. I will
Yeah,
talk about hunting at
absolutely.
work. I will talk about it wherever I go, and just the importance of we need to be responsible. I want to kind of lead by example.
And that's what it is. Right. That was just a sneak peek on my interview with Marvin. Be sure to catch the full episode and the full conversation in the next episode of Wild Talk. This episode of Wild Talk is brought to you by Hornady. Accurate, deadly, dependable. Gronk Beer. Great fucking beer. Umarex Air Guns. Hunt with air. And these fine sponsors.